You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. So we're joined with our regular visitor, Ian Goodwin. Ian, as always, it's great to speak to you.
Thanks very much, Daniel. I thought what I'd do is a few aspects for the radio show, and thanks for inviting me in today. The first thing I want to talk about is water sports and coastal activities, safety advice really. As the sun gets up and we're getting more lighter days and people are out on the beach, just a little bit of timely advice I think wouldn't go amiss. Beaches and coastlines are great places to enjoy a range of water sports and other activities, but there are some sort of general safety in and on the water. All sports have their own rules, but there are some general safety tips that apply to all water activities. Firstly, get trained. Take part in any safety training needed for your sport or activity. Check the weather and tides before setting out. You'd be amazed how many people just don't do that basic thing. Wear a life jacket. Make sure it's the right one for the activity. Very, very important, that one. Saves many lives having a life jacket. Keep in touch. Take some means of communication with you, like a mobile phone or a whistle. Tell someone where you're going and when you'll be back. Don't drink alcohol before going in or on the water. And make sure you understand and obey any safety flags on the beach and pay attention to the lifeguard if there's one on duty. And my advice is, if you see someone in difficulty, don't attempt to rescue. Tell a lifeguard or dial 999 or 112 and ask for the Coast Guard. In terms of beaches, to make sure you're safe as possible, find a beach with a lifeguard. We're very fortunate on Sheppey now that we're going to have 3 beaches this year, which will have lifeguards on it. One at Sheerness, one at Minster and one at Laysdown. And you can ask a lifeguard for advice about conditions in the water, like how strong the waves are and where it's safe to swim. Lifeguards also provide help if you get into difficulty in the water or on the beach. Now, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution patrols more than 100 beaches in the UK during the summer months, and that's May to September. And councils also provide lifeguards on some beaches. If there are no lifeguards on your beach, make sure that you're aware of the hazards and risks and how to avoid them. But pay particular attention to the safety flags on the beach, and you'll see these in operation on our beaches. When you're on the beach, they give important information about where you're likely, about the area you're in and whether it's safe to swim. The beach is good for surfing or using pleasure crafts like yachts, and there are any hazards in the sea. And there are red and yellow flags, and these mark the areas that are patrolled by lifeguards, and these are the safest place to swim or to use a bodyboard. There are red flags, which indicate obviously danger, and never enter the water when a red flag is flying. And there are black and white checkered flags. This means the area is safe for watercrafts like surfboards and kayaks, and it's not safe to swim or use a bodyboard in these areas. If you do take your children out, be mindful of having inflatables. Always use those with an adult with a secure line attached to those inflatables. Otherwise, we do get quite a number of incidences each year where inflatables are drifted out with people on board and off to sea. And again, just a timely reminder about weather and tides. Please check the weather and tidal conditions before you set out. Think about whether you could become cut off and do not take any risks. Do not try and climb cliffs as a shortcut back to the top. And particularly on Sheppey, mud and sand. If you become stuck in mud or soft sand, spread your weight as much as possible if you can. If you have a mobile phone, call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard. Do not try and move around and stay as calm as you can. Don't let others try and rescue because they become stuck too. And we've had numerous incidents where people have gone out and we've only got 2 casualties to rescue.
We are at the moment talking to Ian Goodwin, all as part of our regular HM Coastguard slot. So we are continuing to talk to Ian, all as part of our regular Coastguard slot, and I think you're going to cover some incidents next.
Yes, just like to go back to January, which was the last time I was on your community radio show, and Sunday the 22nd of January there were 3 incidents where Sheppey Coastguards were in attendance. One was assisting Medway Coastguard and Kent Police in the search for a possible missing person last seen on Medway Bridge. The suspect had that it was suspected that the individual had jumped from the bridge, and there was a helicopter and RNLI also assisting in the search. On that day we had a report of ordnance on the beach at Minster. No further information was available at that particular time, but it was possibly going to be an ongoing incident, which it turned out to be the following day. And we assisted the RNLI in the recovery of a broken down vessel in the Medway, and we met the occupants at the Queenborough All-Tide Landing. So those were 3 incidents which we dealt with on that day. 2 of those particular incidents continued into the following week. The first was on Monday, the January the 23rd at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where I was actually in attendance on this, where there was a detonation of ordnance found at Minster Leas, and that was done by the Royal Navy. They actually blew up that particular ordnance. On Friday the 27th of January, we were asked to assist in the search of the missing person who was last seen on the previous Sunday on the Medway Bridge. And unfortunately, that particular person's body was actually recovered that afternoon. And during that recovery, about an hour later, the police also recovered another body, which was come from a previous incident, which was in December, which was very well reported in the press. And that was unfortunate because we did search for that particular individual all over December and into January to no avail. And then purely fortuitously, they were found while searching for another particular individual. On Sunday the 29th of January, we also had another incident regarding a dead porpoise which had been reported, and we located that at Laysdown. And I'll talk a little bit about porpoises in a minute in another section of this interview. Moving on, we didn't have anything in February. In March, Friday the 10th of March, at 11 o'clock at night, we were tasked to Minster Shinglebank following a report of red distress seen in the vicinity, but nothing untoward was found. On March the 26th, we were asked to continue the search for a missing person who was believed to have entered the sea after the car crash at Strode Crescent. And again, that was widely reported. If you may recall, this was a stolen vehicle which crashed in Strode Crescent. The driver ran out and ran straight into the sea. And that person has never been found. Who it was, no one knows, as far as I know. So that probably is still an ongoing incident, believe it or not. But nothing has been heard of or reported subsequently to that date. On the 1st of April, and it wasn't an April Fool, at 10 o'clock, we were called to Love's Beach at Laysdown following a report of a dead porpoise washed ashore. The porpoise was located and relevant measurements were passed on to the London Zoological Society. On Sunday, the 2nd of April, at 11 o'clock in the morning, we were tasked to assist Kent Police for a missing male in the Laysdown area. The Whitstable lifeboat was launched on service, and the missing male was located, and we were all stood down. And finally, on Saturday the 15th of April, at 5 minutes past midnight, we were tasked to the Minster Shinglebank following reports of lights seen offshore. And when we got there, we recognised that there was 2 fishing vessels. We located 2 fishing vessels which did have those little fishing light rods, but nothing was in danger.
We are at the moment talking to Ian Goodwin, all as part of our regular slot with the Sheppey Coastguard here at the Monday Night Community Show. So we are continuing to talk to Ian Goodwin, all as part of our regular slot with the Sheppey Coastguard. And I think we're going to talk about royal fishes now.
That's it, yes. I mean, I've mentioned a bit about the porpoises, a couple of instances with porpoises. And it's interesting that HM Coastguard referred to porpoises as fishes royale, or royal fishes. Fishes royal is an expression that dates back to a statute or law that was brought in by King Edward II in 1324. And according to this law, any whale, dolphin or sturgeon found washed up on the beach or caught within 3 miles of the UK's shores belonged to the monarchy. Traditionally, the head would belong to the king, and the tail would belong, I'm not making this up, would belong to the queen. The whale was split up in this way because the queen could use the bones at the tail end to make the corsets for her dresses, but oftentimes it was actually the baleen or teeth from the whale's mouth that was used in the corsets. Either way, the law still technically stands today, meaning that Queen Elizabeth II not only owns all of the swans that live on the River Thames, but she also owns all of the whales, dolphins, porpoises and sturgeon. And when a whale, dolphin, porpoise or sturgeon dies, either through washing up on the beach or from being caught at sea, the UK Receiver of Wreck, who's part of the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, must be called in to decide what to do with the carcass. We as coastguards have to ensure this happens, and we have to complete a form recording various measurements of the dead mammal. Incidentally, a seal is not a royal fish, a seal isn't. We always advise the public to keep clear of all mammals, and that's all of those other aspects, and seals, whether dead or alive on the shores, as they carry what are called zoonotic diseases, and these are diseases which can be passed on from animal to man. And if you get bitten by a seal, you're lucky if your finger drops off. Worse things happen to you. They're very, very poisonous. If you know those lovely big eyes that are looking at you and you want to pat them on the head, they'll take your hand off. Well, they won't take your hand off. They'll actually contaminate you sufficiently for parts of your body to drop off which they've bitten. So keep well away from them. Historically, the Receiver of Wreck is the official person appointed to take possession of the royal fish, and they might exploit the different parts of the animal for commercial use. The bones for use in corsets, the baleen or teeth in corsets, and the blubber oil is used to lubricate watches or for making candles. By the way, the UK Receiver of Wreck is Alison Kentuck, who works for the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, and she deals with cases of voluntary salvage wreck material across the UK and makes sure that the interests of both the salver and the owner are taken into consideration. And she also, her team processes incoming reports of wreck. This involves researching ownership of wreck material, working with the finder and owner, working with other interested parties such as archaeologists and museums. She is also responsible for the surveys on the USS Montgomery, which we all know lies off the North Kent coast. And as a fully qualified diver and having a master's degree in marine archaeology, she normally undertakes a survey in person. And that's really it in terms of my input tonight. So thank you very much, Daniel, for letting me come onto your show.
No, Ian, as always, thank you very much for coming along. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you very much.
That is Ian Goodwin, part of our regular Coastguard slot here at the Daniel Monday Night Community Show.